Well, I have to thank you all for showing up. And I think it's a good moment for me to say Happy New Year, considering we're still at that point when it's reasonable to wish people Happy New Year. We haven't got so far into January that it all feels like it's just the same as it was. We're still in this idea of newness. And as part of that, I've decided that I'd like to deliver an online group meeting once a month. And you have facilitated my being successful in doing so by showing up, um, which in itself is something new for you. And I can only imagine that your Sunday morning has taken a different routine because of your wanting to show up to this group meditation practice. And I was thinking about this, I obviously for myself, I had to set up some equipment in order to be able to be present as I am and to be able to have the image sent through the ethers so that you could see and hear me. And there's a certain newness to that for me. And then for you, there would be the newness of having to forego whatever it is that you might have previously liked to do on a Sunday morning. Maybe it was go for a walk or maybe serve yourself an extra nice breakfast or whatever other little things that um, you might have gotten up to on a Sunday morning. So with this taking on of something new, there's a giving up of something. So with the newness comes a sacrifice. And this sacrifice, um, while the newness is enticing and it's enjoyable and very alluring and can be very exciting, there is something that we are foregoing. And this having to give something up um, may be outshined by the glossy, alluring effect of something new, but it's there. There's a transition which takes place from the old into the new, and that transition brings about, maybe it might be too much to say a grievance, but definitely some kind of um, internal process which is trying to adjust to the letting go. And you may have felt this morning when you were getting out of bed going, oh, I want to do that meditation, but it's just a little bit more than I had anticipated. I'm going to have to rush my breakfast. I don't get to sit and nurture the cup of tea for so long. And that might bring about a sense of the reality that you're moving from what you used to do into what you're now going to do. And so there's a sacrifice. And so with the beginning of something new, there's a sacrifice, an ending to what was. And with our meditation practice, um, we were sitting together this morning, and some of you will have been involved in meditation practice for quite a period of time. Some of you will be more new to it, and some of you might be extremely new to it. And so the practice in itself, when we sit down to do it, it's a new practice. And we're sitting down on a new day to have a new meditation practice. But that practice is by default asking us to give up what we were doing before. And so every time we sit down to meditate, there's always going to be other stuff that we have to give up. Every new practice means giving up more new stuff. Um, and so this morning, with the practice that you've just completed, you will have had to embark upon that whole process of giving up, letting go, the grievance of what you're not allowed or not allowing yourself to involve yourself in because you want to have this new practice session. And then in the practice session itself, when you look at it and break it down, initially I guided you through a type of grounding exercise just to become familiar with your own space and where you are. And once again, that's a new experience. It's a new experience which requires us to let go of whatever it is that we were engaging in before. And the whole practice of the meditation kind of works like this, where as we're moving through it, the newness of it starts to struggle or come up against what we are letting go of, what we are having to forego. And that balancing out can sometimes cause us to get lost in the practice, because the thing that we're letting go is actually holding on to us quite a bit. Or to put it another way, we don't actually want to let it go. We'd prefer to hold on to it a little bit. And so as we're moving deeper into our meditation practice, we can find ourselves having to struggle with that grievance, with that um, demand for us to let go of what's been so that we can experience what is to be. And the issue with this really is that we talk about newness, but the newness is never absolutely new. Because even when you sit to meditate, we can say it's a new meditation experience. I can talk about this as being a new group, a new online meditation group. But I'm carrying over, and you're carrying over, and when we sit to meditate, we're carrying over everything that has gone before. And how possible is it for us to actually disregard all of that? How possible is it for us to just let go of it and put it at the door so that we can do and experience something which is absolutely new? And that's the challenge, because we are by default always carrying around what we are always carrying around. And even when you're listening to me talking here and you're hearing what I'm talking about, you have all the stuff that you're carrying around, which is measuring my words, measuring what I'm saying, measuring this whole experience. So this experience, we can say it's new, but how new is it really when we are bringing in so much from the past or so much from our previous experience, our previous knowledge to it? When we sit to meditate, and I guided you through the initial practice, and then you sat on your own, and you've had experience of meditation. You've had experience to a degree of the process of having to move into a state which is letting go of everything which has gone before, letting go of everything which is demanding your attention so that you can just sit and observe what it's like to just be. But to do that, the process as you've engaged in it has been, you have a familiarity with it. And so while it's a new meditation practice, the experience is not wholly new because it's been contaminated by everything that you're bringing to it. And so this is an interesting thing for us to reflect on. And that's what it is. It's just a reflection, because there's no simple answer to this. We're trying to come to know an experience of being which is not being defined by um, the frameworks that we have set up for ourselves. Yet that experience of being that we're moving towards, we have learned to do meditation practices, use certain techniques, um, do other formal practices, to think in certain ways. We've read certain books which point us in this direction, and we've listened to other people pointing us in that direction. And we've all this stuff which is helping us to experience, well, that's the intention. It's helping us to experience a new experience, something which is not affected by all that stuff, but we're using all that stuff to help us experience that thing. So there's a kind of a paradox in this. Um, there's a conflict in it, because everything that you've come to the table with today for your meditation practice, all that stuff is going to be the very thing that you're going to have to let go of so as to experience something absolutely new, absolutely fresh. But that newness is being compromised, that moving into the experience of that newness is being compromised by our bringing with us everything that we are carrying. So what we do then effectively is we go on repeating what is and what we've seen as patterns in our own behavior. So we can think about this in our lives. We talk about moving into the new year, but as we move towards February of this 2024, to all extensive purposes, we are going to feel very much like the person we were in November and December of 2023. There's nothing really that's going to make an absolute change. The new year has the glossiness, the the allure of something exciting, something which is going to transform and bring about transformation and something brilliant. But how can that be when we're carrying in so much with us from all the previous years that we have done exactly the same thing every new year, new excitement, new opportunity? But it's this repetition of carrying over what has been functioning within us every single year. And now we've come into 2024 and we've carried it in once again, and it's all there with us. So all we do, in effect, is repeat. We repeat this cycle based on frameworks, based on models, based on information, on our perceived knowledge. We use all of this in the same way. And so when we want to move towards experiencing something new, we have to let go of all of it, letting go of all of it. But what does that actually mean then to let go of all of it? When we look at our meditation practice, we go in and we have techniques, and the technique is helping us to move to a space where we're able to fundamentally let go. That's the objective, including let go of the technique, including let go of every concept we have about what the technique is supposed to do, including letting go of all the other, let's say, details around what we think and know about this discipline of spiritual practice or yoga practice or meditation practice. It all has to just go. And in that letting go of it all, what's really taking place is just paying attention to the experience as it's unfolding, the experience as it is. And if that's all that's going on is paying attention, then when we're sitting with our eyes closed and all we're doing is paying attention, then the thoughts and the movements which are taking place within us, which would have been habitual, repeated on cycles in patterns, if we get to the point where all we're doing is paying attention, then those cycles are perceived as cycles. Those patterns of mental processes are seen as cycles or movements which are repetitiously continuing. And we can see this just because we're paying attention. We're just paying attention to the point where our paying attention starts to see that, well, this isn't very interesting. These cycles are just going on. That these mental movements are just taking place continuously. These thoughts are redundant. They're just going around over and over and over. I just pay attention. And we're just paying attention to what? If you're just paying attention with the point of just paying attention and there's nothing coming in from external sources, and you've realized that the murmurings and the cycles in the mental field are just ongoing, relentless, and there's nothing really to them, and you're not engaging with them, the, there's nothing that's going to survive except for the being attention, except for the paying attention. So now you're paying attention, and in that attentiveness, there's a newness, there's a freshness, because the all that there is the capacity to observe what's taking place. And you'll have, through the process of your meditation practice, moved away from allowing anything in, and then whatever is occurring inside internally, that will have been um, perceived to be based on cycles of repetition, and that repetitious pattern will become something which is no longer new. It'll be something you're paying attention to, and it'll lose any sense of um, significance. It's actually just like a record that's ongoing, or somebody who's had too much to drink who's just babbling, and you're just, I don't need to pay attention to you anymore because I've heard what you've had to say, and it's not really working in terms of what I want to experience. So I've pay attention, but not to you. Um, and so this allows a space then for attention to become very, very one-pointed, I suppose is the word. And then there's a capacity just to be attentive. And in our meditation practice, that'll culminate in our being extremely attentive, but there's nothing to be attentive to per se, because everything else has subsided. It has been seen through and it has subsided. So now what are you paying attention to? You're paying attention to just that capacity to pay attention. You're paying attention to the capacity to be aware. And then you experience your whole essence as being awareness, as being that capacity to be aware. And that's all that there is. When we bring this into our daily life, then we are doing the same. As we talked about, somebody who might have had a little bit too much to drink, and they say something to you, and then you realize, I don't want to give my attention to this anymore because there's nothing in it for me. So I'm not going to pay attention to this. I'll shift my attention to the next new thing and the next new thing. But in order to do that, we have to be able to let go of everything that we have been holding on to. So to move into an experience, something which is authentically new, in order to be able to pay attention, we have to be able to let go of what has gone on before. Um, and this becomes a challenging thing to talk about because obviously we have past experiences. We have a whole repertoire of memories which help to facilitate our being able to engage in life in practical ways. And so that's all of importance. What we're getting at is the tendency towards repetition, the tendency towards repeating of patterns. So even though we've moved into 2023 and now we're into 2024, we carry around with us um, uh, patterns of behavior, ways of thinking which are on cycles, um, everything which we can say fundamentally makes up how we present ourselves to the world. But it's all going on at a very subtle level. And for us to be able to enjoy our day-to-day experience and to enjoy what they say in modern parlance, to live in the moment, that's about paying attention. And to be able to pay attention in that moment when this stuff arises up from our habitual ways of thinking. And I might just pause on that note, because when we say habitual ways of thinking, it's very easy for us to all just see ourselves as being exactly the same, and we all have habitual ways of thinking, and thinking's just what's going on. But fundamentally, it's more specific than that, because each one of you will have your own framework, your own mold on how you cycle and recycle different ideas and thoughts and beliefs in your head. And all these patterns which are taking place, they're not always within what we call our attention. They're outside of our attention. They're outside of our capacity to be conscious of, but they're taking place and they're functioning and they're determining our experience of what's going on. So all of it that has been determining what's been going on for us in 2023 is still with us, and it's going to be determining what's going on in 2024. However, when we talk about being attentive, we're talking about coming to know those cycles of thinking, those patterns of thinking which are at play. And how do we do that? Well, our meditation practice allows us to become aware of the mechanism of this repetitive cycle of thinking and thought processes. But it also allows us to experience thoughts which are at play. They kind of hold a linchpin. And it's not necessarily a thought in itself, like one single thought, but it's the nature of certain thoughts and how they move together and work together and cling together in certain ways that cause us to focus in on certain details in a way that other people won't do it. So the details and the specifics of how we live our life are based on this framework that we have established for ourselves, which we are not altogether aware of. Our meditation practice isn't necessarily going to start pulling all of this apart so that we can know how to label it all on a very conscious level, but it is going to help us to become more aware of this whole mechanism which is at play, this whole mechanism of churning and rechurning and recycling um, that has always been at play, so that we can start to say, I'm attentive to it, I can see it, but I don't want to allow it to be the sole thing which is defining my experience. So Happy New Year. uh, I feel there's a lot in that. And if I was going to try to sum it up in some way or another, um, there's a lot going on for us. And when we move from 2023 into 2024, it's bright, there's optimism, there's potential. When we sit down to engage in our meditation practice, we can do so sometimes more enthusiastically than other times, but there is an opportunity for, there's a potential for experience. The key thing in it all is our becoming more aware that of our capacity to just pay attention, paying attention being the solution, not getting more information, not trying to fix information, not trying to have an understanding of everything or put meaning on things, but just paying attention. And the paying attention is what will allow for the solution to present itself. In the same way as when you sit to meditate and that silence that you experienced, it was rejuvenating. It helped you to connect with yourself. It helps you to feel at peace within yourself. But there's layers to that silence. There's different depths to it. There's more of it that can be tasted and drunk from, you know. The well is deep. And our paying attention is the same. Um, the more we just consider this as being the solution to everything, to our paying attention is the solution to everything.